China, Russia and Iran will hold joint naval drills tomorrow. This is the third time it's happening, the first since the new Iranian president took office. With us from Dubai to discuss this is Dr. Najat Al-Sayed, assistant professor at American University in Emirates. Good evening to you.
Good evening.
Well, this is pretty remarkable. It's the third time, but especially when it comes to both China and Russia cooperating there with Iran. How is this being perceived and viewed in the Gulf?
Well, according to this upcoming joint naval drills in the Pacific Ocean between Russia, Iran, and China, according to the Russian media, the main task of the exercises is to take measures to ensure the safety of international shipping and combat sea pirates. But actually, the purpose of the drill is more deep political, economic, and strategic alliance. So we will see that we saw that Vladimir Putin will host his Iranian counterpart Ibrahim Raisi in Moscow next week, and the talk will be mainly aimed on Iran's nuclear deal. It is in fact the first Iranian president visit to Russia since 2017. So and this is so important, of course, to the Gulf. And according to the U.S. media, the naval drills are conducted by three of America's biggest adversaries to form three autocracies against the U.S. And we know how the U.S. is supporting the Arabian Gulf countries, and specifically of what happened back in 2019 when the U.S.-led International Maritime Security Construct began stability and peacekeeping operations in the Arabian Gulf and in Strait Hormuz, the Strait of Bab el-Mandeb, and the Gulf of Oman. And the IMSC formed in the wake of a series of suspected Iranian attacks directed against the oil tankers of oil refineries. So basically, the U.S. media is explaining that this is like kind of a coalition against the U.S. Others speculated this is cooperation among China, Russia, and Iran for mutual benefits and win-win relations rather than forming an alliance and engaging in confrontation. For example, Iran can provide China with oil to expand its economic export, and China supplies a quarter of Iran's foreign trade. So this is not the first, as you mentioned, this is not the first time for the three countries to hold similar joint exercises. In 2019, the Chinese Navy with its Russian and Iranian counterparts conducted a 4-day military drill on the Gulf of Oman to deepen the cooperation between the navies and the three countries. Here, we see that the naval drills provide a symbolic military and political show of support from Russia and China for Iran, with the aim to protect share the strategic interests of the three countries. And definitely this is kind of like worrisome in a kind to the Arabian Gulf countries because of this kind of coalition.
Right. So what would be the counter reaction? I mean, obviously we know that the UAE have their own military drills by air, by sea, and other. So we're going to have many drills on many sides until something real happens?
Well, there must be the same kind of collaboration between Iran, China, and Russia. There must be something on the other hand, on the other like opposite direction between the U.S. and the Arabian Gulf countries, and it already has this already has been done by the U.S.-led International Maritime Security Council. That was after the many attacks of the Saudi oil refineries, but you know, the problem, there's kind of like, what do you call it, like a proxy, or like there's like adversaries between the Arabian Gulf countries, it's mainly Saudi Arabia and Iran. At the same time, there's kind of adversary between the U.S. and China and Russia, and also including Iran. So this is you know, the main thing that is happening when the U.S. like formed this IMSC, Russia had introduced a separate concept for collective security for the Arabian Gulf just months before the formation of the IMSC. So both Russia and China are also adding to their collaboration with Iran. They're also in competition with the U.S. and their interests to the Arabian Gulf. So that it is complicated. You couldn't say that Iran, Russia, and China on one side, and the United States and the Arabian Gulf on the other side, because sometimes it is interconnected because of the whole mutual interest.
Right. But I'm trying to get from you, is there a sense of being threatened by this, I mean, the Gulf states like UAE and others, when you see such three very powerful countries like China, Russia, and Iran, making this show of force right under the nose?
Definitely. This is kind of like a threat. Yes, they see it as a threat. But the problem, I always say that the problem, we don't have a consistent like U.S. foreign policy towards the Arabian Gulf. Otherwise, you will be seeing more like more forceful coalition between the U.S. and the Arabian Gulf countries, because sometimes one administration comes that it is strict against Iran and accordingly tougher on Iran, on China and Russia, and sometimes you see more lenient administration towards Iran and also to Russia and China, and accordingly that push the Arabian Gulf to diversify their alliance, because sometimes accordingly to this mixed signals by different U.S. administrations, they diversify their kind of alliance with other countries to protect themselves. But if you have like consistent foreign policy, especially against Iran, regardless of any administration that comes, you will see much like a stronger counterpart against this kind of coalition, because it is a threat. But sometimes you have to diversify your alliance because of this kind of different foreign policies.
Right. So there's a sense that the United States, at least this administration, is somewhat backing away from the region. But countries like China and Russia, should or could the Gulf states have direct good relationships with?
They already have good relationship with. They're like trades with billions of dollars, and also there are like also military exchanges between the countries, military deals between the countries, especially with Russia. So they are already having this kind of good relationship. But honestly, the historical relationship, especially when things comes to the security of the Gulf, definitely the first country that they will depend on is basically the United States. But unfortunately, in the last years, this kind of lack of partisan or a lack of bipartisan foreign policy changed quite this kind of dependence. But the main source of security in the Gulf is basically the collaboration with the United States. If it weren't that kind of lack of bipartisan foreign policy.
We'll leave it at that. Thank you very much, Dr. Najat Al Sayed, in joining us tonight.